Well, a very, very happy Wednesday morning to everyone, and welcome to the John Quintero Show on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Glad to have you today. We got a lot to cover. Padres get beat game one of their three-game series at Citi Field last night. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about everything regarding National League West baseball. We've got a great guest coming up here momentarily, but I want to remind everyone, if you're tuning in for the very, very first time, we'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to our channel, like it, send your questions in. Always enjoy the questions. And we just started it a couple of weeks ago, basically because you folks out there asked for it. If you'd like to become a member of our Gold Glove members team for $2.99 a month, we'll continue to bring you the great content out there. And a lot of people had asked about, are you selling sponsorships? Well, I'm not going out and hitting the pavement to sell sponsorships. There's somebody out in our listening audience is interested in sponsorship. You can go ahead and contact me and we can talk about that. But this is a way everyone can be involved. $2.99 a month. Just go to our YouTube page, hit join, and we'll get you all set up. This is a great time of year. I mean, this is an incredible time of year with baseball winding down during the regular season, heading to the playoffs, college football underway. You've got the NFL rolling right now, the NBA not that far away, college basketball. I mean, this is just a great time of year. And for this gentleman now, he's having to pick and choose what he wants to write. And he does an incredible job. One of my favorite guys in the media business, always comes with great passion, a smile on his face, and he can be critical. There's no question about that. And a lot of you have read his columns for many years now in the Los Angeles Times, and that's our good friend columnist of the LA Times. Dylan Hernandez joins us on the John Quintero Show. And I got to ask you right off the bat, what was it like in that Dodger clubhouse last night after blowing a 4-0 lead and getting beat 9-6? It had to be awful quiet in there, I would think.
Yeah, it was quiet. One of the players who knows me a little bit better than the others, we kind of, locked eyes, and I think that player kind of started laughing, kind of knowing the type of column that would probably be written that day. That's how I read it. But yeah, this was a bad loss. This is horrible. Not just because of the lead that was blown right initially. Shohei Ohtani pitched 5 no-hit innings. They've kind of been limiting him to 5 innings. They take him out at that point. Justin Robleski comes in, immediately gives up 5 runs. Before the inning's over, he's getting pulled. They go to Edgardo Enriquez, who gives up another home run. All of a sudden, they're down 6-4. Ohtani then, and I was joking with somebody in the back, like, watch, like Ohtani's going to homer today. I didn't think he was actually going to do it, right? And here they are. They're kind of down. The whole place is deflated. He hits a home run. They tack on another run. Now the game's tied, right? The stadium's rocking again. Then Blake Trinan comes in. He gives up 3 runs in the 9th inning. Dodgers lose. And I think there have been various deflating defeats, this season, recently even, right? The Yoshinobu Yamamoto almost no-hitter that turned into a loss somehow. That one was pretty bad. But, this one was bad in the sense that I think, right, it kind of felt like an addition to all the other ones, right? All the other ones, they've kind of dusted themselves off and shown up. The one thing is Dave Roberts has his team ready to play every day. I think the players' intent hasn't changed, and so it kind of felt like, okay, we've gone through all these bad losses, we've dusted ourselves off every time, and we're ready to fight. And again, it happened. So this one was really bad.
I look back over the last couple of weeks, Dodgers, they lost those first 2 games in Baltimore, a walk-off homer the next night, 1 out away from a no-hitter, end up losing that game. And then you go back to that first game last week up there in San Francisco. They worked so hard to get back into that game. Pages throws a runner out at the plate to send it to the 10th inning, and Patrick Bailey comes up and hits a grand slam homer off a Tanner Scott. And then, the other night they got beat 6-5. And then last night, just a complete and utter meltdown. And from your standpoint, how's Dave Roberts dealing with this right now? Because he's getting no help from his bullpen whatsoever.
Yeah, Dave is, he's kind of used to this, right? This isn't his first rodeo. They've had bad times before. He's kind of used to dealing with the pressure and, kind of having misdirected blame pointed at him, which happens a lot. I thought was very unfortunate yesterday was, when he went out to get Robleski in that 6th inning. I mean, the entire stadium just booed him as if it was his choice, right, to kind of remove Ohtani after 5. I mean, again, that was not a baseball decision. Okay, you might think, everybody I know thinks their manager's an idiot, but most of these people actually know a lot of. They actually know a lot of baseball. And pulling a guy who has a no hitter through 5 and his pitch count's not that elevated, that's not a baseball call. Clearly, that is a medical call, right? And these are decisions made obviously with the input of the front office, the input from the agent, even, but most definitely with input from Dr. Neil Elatraj, who, right, is the surgeon who performed the surgery on his elbow and has overseen his rehab. So yeah, the fans have, but that said, Roberts kind of becomes a face for this entire thing. He becomes very emblematic, I think, of the team's struggles. And so, a lot of this is getting kind of pointed at him. But, my question to these people is like, well, what did you want him to do? Right. I mean, because here's the thing, right? Even like, let's just say, whatever, he let Ohtani go for one more inning. Let's just say he had decided to kind of go off script and do that, which I think would have been risky. But let's just say he did that. You have to go to the bullpen at that point anyway, and I think Robleski comes out regardless, right? I mean, that was a guy they actually trusted. They're right now they're guys that you want to go to and you don't want to go to. And at least as of yesterday, Robleski was on the, okay, we can trust this guy. At least this guy's going pretty good right now, bucket, and it just kind of feels like, this is what I wrote in the column today, was that every time he's going to the bullpen, he's basically juggling a bunch of sticks of dynamite, right? And it's just a matter of time before one of these things blows. Again, and I'll just kind of remind people again, Dave Roberts was not the one who decided, at the trade deadline to not do anything, basically, right? They went out, they got Brock Stewart. It was kind of the one addition they made. And Stewart is a guy, right? And they're very familiar with this because he was on the Dodgers previously. This is a guy with health injury, right? With health problems, right? And sure enough, since they've gotten him, Stewart has spent the majority of his time with the Dodgers on the injured list. That was not Dave Roberts' call. There's a division of labor, obviously, with these things. It's up to the players to perform. It's up for the manager to manage, and it's up for the front office to go out and acquire players. And, I think what the Dodgers did this year was they tried to get their shopping done early, right? They went out, they signed Tanner Scott to a $72 million contract. They get Kirby Yates on a 1-year deal for, I think it was like 13, 14 million, somewhere in that range. And then once they kind of did that, they were going to this trade deadline. And even though Scott and Kirby Yates weren't going well, I think both were injured at the time of the deadline. Their thinking was, well, once everybody comes back, we're going to be good. I don't know how they could think that, given that, again, Scott hasn't been good all year. Yates has been pretty awful the entire year. Getting back underperforming pitchers isn't all of a sudden going to make your bullpen good, and so, right, Roberts didn't do that. And, I think, though, that said, I think he's kind of accepted that this is kind of his lot with the Dodgers, unfortunately, right, is that he becomes the face of everything. And again, I thought it was really unfortunate that he got booed as much as he did, because to me, that kind of shows, maybe that the fans aren't really paying attention to what's going on with this team and why certain decisions are getting made.
Yeah, that decision to take Ohtani out, that's been consistent throughout the course of him coming back. At the most, maybe he'd go 6, but last night, they decided, hey, 5 was enough. I mean, that guy's pretty amazing. I don't think people, and I know a lot of people get tired of everybody talking about Ohtani, but what this guy is doing, and I know he's not running as much now as he did a year ago, but in the playoffs, he may run. We'll wait and see. He'll do whatever it takes, I think, to win ball games. But what this guy is doing is really, it's a miracle. I mean, I in my lifetime, I can't even imagine seeing another guy even close to being as good as this guy. I mean, what he has to navigate every day when he opens his eyes and heads out to the ballpark is just amazing. And having been around baseball forever, I'm just in awe of what this guy is able to do. And whenever he's at bat, man, you don't want to be in the hot dog line. I can tell you that, even getting a Dodger dog.
Yeah, and again, that home run that he hit yesterday, that one kind of took my breath away, right? I mean, and I'm used to him, and I almost kind of semi-expect him to hit in big moments. But that was so deflating after they gave up that lead that it just kind of felt like, okay, like, this game's already over. And he just keeps fighting, right? And he finds ways to kind of hit at times that can, in ways that just kind of completely shift the momentum of the game. And he did that at that time. Unfortunately for him, Blake Treinen had to come in and to close the game. What is kind of interesting with him right now, and I think something that came up post game is he kind of got asked a benign question, about potentially pitching out of the bullpen. Right, the Dodgers have made it pretty clear. Okay, he's going to start in the postseason, but in addition to that, might he be able to pitch out of the pen later in the series? And he's like, yeah, obviously, I've had different conversations with different people. We've talked about it. I want to be prepared for anything that's thrown at me, right? That's kind of my job is, right? I do as I'm told. I want to be ready for whatever I'm asked to do, whether that's on the mound or in the outfield, and so he kind of brought up this idea of, I guess, playing in the outfield because, one thing right now with the way Major League Baseball's rules are currently written, if he's a starting pitcher and he's taken out of the game, he can remain in the game as a DH. However, because of the language of that rule, if he were to enter the game, let's say start the game as a DH, enter the game as a reliever, if he came out of the game, he could not remain as a DH. The Dodgers would lose the designated hitter. So one way to avoid that would be for him to remain in the game, not as a DH, but as an outfielder, right? So, and now on one hand, Roberts seemed very kind of excited and, he smiled when he was told, hey, this is what Ohtani said. To me, this is kind of actually like alarming because what it reminds me of is, when you go back a couple of years ago, back to when he was playing for the Angels, right? And the Angels that year, his last season, with the Angels in 2023, they were kind of hanging on the periphery of contention, right? There were 3-4 games back, 3 to 5 games back all the time. And he did not take a single day off, right? And kind of one thing that he showed was almost this like complete disregard for his health, right? And keep in mind, he was in a walk year, right? And we were already talking at that point, could he make $500 million in free agency, $600 million in free agency, $700 million in free agency? And there were starts where he got pulled from one start because he lost feeling in his fingers, and instead of, the team did, I guess, technically offer him like, hey, do you want to have an MRI to get that checked out? He told them, no, I want to keep playing. And eventually he blew out, right? That's who this guy is. And the fact, ironically, I think he signed with the Dodgers to avoid this situation, this exact situation, right? To not be in the position where he was with the Angels, where he felt, I have to do everything, right? Now, Ohtani obviously is a very polite guy. He's not going to disparage his teammates. But when he's talking about, I can pitch more innings and I can also pitch out of the bullpen and I can even play in the outfield if I have to. That to me sounds like the good kid in Little League, right? The one, the kid that's
he has played the outfield. It wouldn't be something new to him. He was a center fielder.
Right. But given the, I think what's alarming about this though, right, is the fact that he is coming off the Tommy John. They are handling him like this for a reason. And I think, these are not as much as the front office is involved in this, as much as his agent is involved in this, the guy really calling the shots here is Dr. Neil Elatraj. Let's be right. This is a modified rehab that just happens to be taking place, right? Instead of going to Oklahoma City the way most pitchers would, he's doing this at the major league level while continuing to hit. This is rehab right now, right? And so the fact that he kind of, right, things basically what's happened is things have reached a point, the situation is dire enough to where he is kind of like, you know what, screw this rehab thing, right? And I think, one thing I did ask Roberts about is how much is he going to have a say in how you guys use him going forward? Because players more than anybody, right, they understand their mortality, as athletes. And look, this team is probably the Dodgers. You could talk about this team being worse than it was last year. It is. And I think part of it is the fact that the team is getting older, and if they were a little bit worse than they were last year, they're going to be a little bit worse next year probably than they are this year, unless they find a way to kind of blow this whole thing up. No, Ohtani knows this, right? You only get so many shots at championships. And I think you ask me, and we just kind of look at this guy's track record. He's, like you said, he's going to do whatever he has to win, even though it might not be medically the smart thing to do. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get hurt, right? And even kind of they can probably push him a little bit more while still kind of keeping an eye on him. But that doesn't change the fact that he is increasing his risk level, because basically the team around, right, the team is basically like, let's just say it the way it is. The Dodgers have failed Shohei Ohtani.
As a Padre fan down here, this is so frustrating to watch what's going on. The Dodgers are handing the Padres the National League West, yet the Padres won't take it. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. I mean, they haven't won a division title since 2006. This is their best opportunity. The Dodgers have missed more games than any team in baseball with players on the IL this year. And everything is going wrong, yet the Padres still can't overtake the Dodgers. That's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and kind of right, and up here it's kind of a source of amusement, right? I mean, you're kind of watching the Padre right if the games are on at different times, or even if they're on at the same time. It's somebody on press row's got the Padre game on the computer, kind of tracking it and stuff, and it's like, oh, they're losing again. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the level of panic, right? I mean, the one thing that is, I think, keeping the Dodgers kind of clubhouse the same place is just this knowledge that, right, oh yeah, things are going bad here, but at least the team chasing us, it's going bad for them too. Yeah, it's almost unbelievable, right? And I think, again, I think going forward here, we've talked on this program before about the Padres kind of ownership issues right now, right? What is their payroll going to look like in future seasons? Even though they did some exciting things at the trade deadline, right? They didn't use cash capital, right? They used their prospect capital. And that's kind of been like their one saving grace. But, I don't think, right, they're going to lose guys in the rotation. Like, I mean, who's going to be pitching for them next year? You talk about windows closing. The window could be closing for the Padres here, right? And this Dodger-Padre rivalry could be kind of winding down, in which case, it's such a shame just given the way that city has responded to the Padres putting a great product on the field, right? I mean, the city's obviously responded. The fans have been there. And for kind of this to happen at this point is almost mind-blowing. Again, we're watching it from up here kind of like, huh, obviously we, as reporters, like, let's not lie, right? We don't want to go on the road, as much as possible, right? Have home field advantage. Look, I get paid the same. I just want to make this clear. I get Dodgers win, Dodgers lose, whatever. I get paid the same, right? If anything, if anything, I get more time off if they lose. Okay. That said, heading into the playoffs, we want the team we cover to have home field advantage just because it's just so much easier. Right now, if the Dodgers somehow get through to the division series, we're going to have, 2 road trips instead of 1 now, right? So when we're kind of looking at this wild card series, that it looks like, both the Dodgers and Padres are going to have to play, and just because the Phillies have, gapped both teams pretty substantially at this point. We're kind of looking at this and, man, like, how can the Padres not close this gap? Like you said, it's absolutely, just kind of amazing in a weird way to kind of watch what the Padres, I guess, aren't doing.
Dylan, you're around the press box, or you're on the phone. You got a great network of people, and you've done this for a long time. What are you hearing on the Padres and the ownership? We know the payroll's probably going to go down, but what are you hearing regarding the ownership?
Not too much, I think at this point, I don't think people really know. That said, I mean, you do kind of hear from, some of the old school scouts that still kind of use writers like as resources, right? And, I think you kind of get at, right? I've been getting asked a bit about like Padres players because they're kind of thinking, okay, this might be, a carcass that the vultures can come in and pick at, perhaps, right? I think a lot of the sport is kind of like expecting this thing to kind of wind down. Again, and anytime you get it, especially in LA here, like, we're very kind of sensitive to these, family legal battles because of, like, well, frankly, what happened with the McCourts, right? It ended up with them having to sell the team here. The Chargers have their own thing going on right now with the siblings all kind of arguing about like what to do with the team and stuff. That hasn't affected the team yet, right? If anything, we've seen them go out and sign, John Harbaugh since that dispute broke out. But we've seen things with the Lakers too. The Bus family and the Bus kids. Jeannie, right? Kind of wrestling control of that team from her brother. Jim. So yeah, it's I think it's one of those things where I think we kind of understand what the ranges of possibilities are because we've seen it to some degree before, and I guess obviously the Dodgers situation is like the worst case scenario, right? Where things kind of, devolve to a point where a sale is forced. And, probably at very least, you're looking at a Laker type situation where there's going to be kind of some internal battles over kind of control of the team. And, again, maybe you have to pay certain people to kind of go away. That could affect things. Again, it's just on multiple levels, right? I mean, it's just kind of a sad thing, just because, again, right, just, whenever you have a team again that doesn't have a history of success, and all of a sudden, right, you get ownership that is like willing to dream and kind of right take the city along for a ride like that. That's always kind of an exciting thing. Obviously, I guess one comparison, I mean, it's probably not as bad there as it might be here with the Clippers, but kind of Steve Ballmer came in and changed everything there, right? And all of a sudden, this franchise that was like, expected to be bad all the time is now having championship aspirations. And, that's always exciting when that happens. And so, I think just kind of looking from up here, I mean, I think everybody is kind of sympathetic to this. I think, also one thing that the LA fan, I think, does appreciate, right? I mean, as much as like there'll be a lot of trash talk between the two cities, the fact that San Diego's so close, right? And, whenever the Dodgers are playing down in San Diego, obviously Dodger Stadium, the tickets are so expensive, right? That a lot of people say like, okay, when the Dodgers are in Anaheim, that's where I'm going to catch them. Or when they're in San Diego, that's where I'm going to go catch them. And the truth is, this is the best rivalry in baseball right now, right? And I don't even think it's close, honestly, at the moment, right? Dodgers, Padres, it's the cities, it's the teams, right? The personalities on the Padres have these really big, brash personalities, and the Dodgers are kind of more, show up to work with their briefcases and their nice suits every day. The contrasts are great. The fact that like, Dave Roberts and Mike Schilt of all people, look like they would get into a fight if you let them. It's great, and I think secretly, I don't think anyone up here is hoping for kind of the destruction of the Padres franchise, because this has been a really fun rivalry, I think, for however long it's been now.
What's amazing to me, going back a couple of weeks when they were going head to head 2 weekends in a row, none of those games were on national TV. How can that be?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that probably speaks more to, right, just kind of where baseball is like in the American landscape. I think you're right. People refer to baseball as kind of being a regional sport, meaning that, teams and players might be popular in their particular market, and if you kind of add up all these markets on any given night, right, sure, like a lot of people are actually watching baseball, but outside of Otani, maybe Aaron Judge, maybe Fernando Tatis, there are not many guys that are kind of like known nationally, right? And I do think, when baseball kind of makes decisions, I would just kind of caution them, be aware of the larger picture, and this, I'm going to kind of go kind of this to almost kind of a weird parallel here, but like kind of in the, there's become a big controversy in Japan right now, in that Netflix bought the rights for the next World Baseball Classic, right? And this has always been the WBC, big events in Japan, boxing matches even, right? They don't put stuff on pay-per-view over there. Everything's on free TV, And so this idea that you're going to have to pay for something, right? And this is, in Japan, right? I mean, these games get 60% of viewership, right? Of all TVs will be like on one game or something. You're going to kind of lose, right? There's some concern that like, okay, well, maybe like old people won't know how to sign up for Netflix or something, right? Maybe people don't have smart TVs, just because everybody's just used to watching regular stuff. And I do wonder, right, that the kind of like the long-term thing, right? The one thing about baseball is that, again, those WBCs that Ichiro played in, right? I mean, he was a hero of Otani's. We got Otani because of this, right? I mean, this generation of players, the Seiya Suzuki's that are here, Kodai Senga, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, all these guys, I think are here in part because those games were accessible to everybody, and the game is better because of it. And I feel that a lot of times, and I'm sorry, I just kind of went off on this weird tangent here, but
That's all right.
I do feel sometimes that baseball is so short-sighted in their decision making that, kind of over time, their national profile has just kind of disappeared, right? And it's not a national sport anymore. That's the reality. The Dodgers and Padres play. I think it's a huge deal. Obviously in LA, it's a huge deal in San Diego. I don't know how big of a deal this is in Boston. I don't know. I don't know how big of a deal this is in Minneapolis, right? This is not the NFL. And, I think again, I would just, right. American business is American business. It's not that they're not going to listen to me, but, I would personally, advise them to maybe kind of think kind of like in the long-term thing and where the sport's going to kind of end up. Because again, when I was a kid, right. And, probably Griffey was kind of the end of like my childhood. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr. was still like, he was right there. People forget, right? Before Jordan went off and won all these titles, they were right there, right? Baseball was still the king of sports, Um, the Dodgers, as much as, Magic and the Lakers were big, guys like Mike Piazza, Eric Karros, those guys were huge guys in LA, right? To a degree that I'm not sure, Angelinos, until, maybe again, this recent run, right, where, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani came along. People in LA probably didn't quite, I think a lot of them forgot of how big baseball used to be. It's just changed so much.
I got a couple of other questions regarding the Dodge. Number one, about Otani, and you speak Japanese, and I always bring up how you went over there and covered him before he ever came to the States. You talked to his high school coach, spent a lot of time with his high school coach, but how well does he speak English?
I think enough. It's not like I don't think he's kind of in a position to give like a real like speech, right? I mean, I think one of the things that I've thought was kind of unfortunate is, there's a video and you guys can look this up on, do a search on Twitter. He gave a speech to the Japanese team before the WBC final. And it was very kind of succinct. It was simple yet kind of very profound, got to the point. And you listen to this and it's like you're ready to run through a wall yourself, and kind of so right, he's not going to be able to give that kind of speech in English. That said, the one thing about him is he's got a very he has a very expressive face, right? And so I think he's able to, and I think that this is actually one of the reasons he's been able to connect with fans even. Even though again there's a language barrier, is the fact that like he's very expressive. You see too, like even in the batter's box, someone throws a pitch high, he does these very, he leans all the way back. It's kind of very exaggerated. He's able to kind of convey things physically. And, again, you talk to all the players, I think, situation like this where you kind of have like one guy who's on a different schedule than everybody, who's probably treated a little bit different than everybody else. Baseball clubhouses are a place where resentments can grow, towards somebody like that. And the fact that everybody, they don't just like tolerate him, they like him, I think kind of really speaks to kind of his like ability to communicate one way or another.
Last thing on the Dodgers. They're hoping to get Will Smith back, maybe as early as tonight, apparently. We'll wait and see on that. But Tommy Edmonds come back, and even though he didn't have a lot to show for it offensively, he's actually swinging the bat pretty well. He's hitting into a little bit of tough luck in that Giants series, but his at-bats are looking good. Muncie's back. The pitching staff is as healthy as it's been really all year long. Whether they win the division or end up getting in as a wild card, with the experience and getting all their guys back, they haven't had their entire team together. I don't think the entire year actually. Can they make another run at it, or do you think the Phillies have passed them by, and this Milwaukee ball club doesn't look like they're going to go away?
Yeah, I think when I look at the lineup, I can see it working, right? When I look at the starting rotation, I can see it working. When I look at the bullpen, I have trouble imagining that working, And what I kind of fear for Dave Roberts' sake, I guess, is that he might be kind of getting set up for a Grady Little moment, right? Let's theoretically, so let's just kind of like play this hypothetical out, right? Let's be honest. Blake Snell, come playoff time, he's a 5-inning pitcher, right? So say now you're in the 6th inning, you're going into the 6th inning, and he's starting to kind of run out of gas a little bit. Who do you bring in? right? Or who do you have pitch that inning? Do you stick with Blake Snell, or do you go with one of these relievers who's probably gotten blown up at some point? And now kind of the Dodgers, I think with the way they've been doing things over the years, they've trained, right, almost their fans to kind of expect, the manager to go to the bullpen. But like I said earlier, going to the bullpen is it's like playing with sticks of dynamite, right? Um, so that could be a bad choice. That said, you stick in with your starter too long, especially in this era of, I mean, all the VR stuff that they have in the back now for these guys, right? I mean, it's not, right? I mean, there's a reason, first of all, that right with every at bat, right, guys against a certain pitcher, the batting averages go up. Now it's not just the real life batting, at bats that you have to worry about. These guys are in the back watching the whole VR thing. They know what the pitch looks like coming out of your hand. So by the time you do get to that stage of the game, these guys know you, and so do you stick with Blake Snell in that situation? It could be, one of these situations where both choices are bad, right? And it's almost like whatever you choose, it's going to go badly. And probably at that point, Roberts is going to have to make the decision of, okay, well, which one of these decisions can I live with a little bit easier? That's not a great place to be, and look, I think it's possible, right? I'm never going to count them out just because, again, we saw in that series in San Diego, they lost the first two games, and the next day they come out, right, on Sunday of that series, they come out, they pitch, right, Yamamoto pitches great, they hit 4 home runs. There are days, right, that they're kind of tough to beat, where you can kind of slide through with that bull. But it's just hard for me to imagine, though, again, having to go through the wild card round now. It's going to be the wild card round, the division series, the league championship series, and the World Series. We're talking about 4 series now, where you're going to have to kind of get through this with a kind of a rinky-dink bullpen. Hey, let me throw out a kind of an old name for you that we haven't talked about in a while, Roki Sasaki, right? Basically been injured the whole time. He sounds like he hit 101 in his previous start at AAA Oklahoma on his rehab assignment. My thing is at this point, look, he's not going to be part of the rotation. He's just not, right? They got 5 guys, right? Probably for 4 spots at this point. And I'm guessing, either Kershaw or Glasnow end up on the outside looking in. That's kind of a very, right, talent-rich rotation. Why not give Sasaki a shot in the bullpen, right? I mean, if this guy's throwing 101, 102 as a starter, you tell him 1 inning, throw as hard as you can. Okay, sure, he might not, command the ball very well, but I mean, who in there is? I think you might as well try it. Kind of one thing maybe that's good about them being out of this thing for a top 2 seed at this point is, once they can maybe create some separation with the Padres, they can afford to run Sasaki out there a couple times just to kind of see what this looks like.
I think if I was running the Dodgers and I was going into the playoffs, I think from what I've seen recently, I got to go with Yamamoto definitely in game 1. I'd have to go with Glasnow in game 2 and Snell in game 3. Kershaw, I don't know where he pitches, to be honest with you. I mean, his stuff is not good, but he's been able to fool guys. And where would the Dodgers be without his performance this year? I mean, 10-2 and like a 3.57 ERA, and I know that's gone up recently. He done a hell of a job. And the other guy, who I really do think factors in, is the guy that we saw a couple of nights ago. They didn't start him. They brought him in, though, in the first inning. It's Emmett Sheehan. He could be their secret weapon this year.
Yeah, and I think they part of the reason they put an opener in front of them in that game, in front of him in that game, is specifically to kind of prepare him for that type of role, right? That he's going to kind of come in as a middle innings guy. Yeah, and you forgot about Ohtani, right? I mean, I think between Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Snell, there probably isn't a bad choice for a game 1 starter. I think. Glasnow is fascinating, right? Because I think the stuff is electric. When he's on, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. That said, he's kind of one of these guys, when things start kind of going wrong for him, he has trouble holding it together. And coincidentally or not, I believe he has a playoff career ERA of close to 6. I don't know how he's going to kind of stand up, in the hold up like under the bright lights. And Kershaw's kind of the other extreme, right? Where, you don't trust the stuff at all. That said, when you talk about makeup, when you talk about a guy kind of taking the mound and okay, like I trust that this guy won't beat himself. that's Clayton Kershaw. So to me, there's some debate there. But, the one thing is I do think Glasnow winds up getting that fourth spot for the reason that Glasnow has a potential of giving you length, right? And right now, the Dodgers need their starters they can't be doing the conventional, five and dive thing. They need their starters to pitch 6 innings, if not 7 innings, and I think the chance of getting that from Tyler Glasnow at this stage of his career is much greater than it would be Kershaw. So to me, the 4 guys are going to be Ohtani, Yamamoto, Snell, and Glasnow in some order. And my guess is again with Ohtani, they're going to probably kind of project this ahead, right? The division series, obviously the NL, there's an extra day off this year in the division series between games 1 and 2. So, the Dodgers love that kind of stuff, right? It's like, okay, if we start Ohtani on this day, we can, he can start on this game. And then that means we can kind of give him a rest and he can just focus on hitting from here to here. So I'm sure they'll be doing all that kind of stuff, mapping it all out. But, my guess is it's going to be those 4 guys.
All right, Dylan, a couple of other quick questions. And I know you've covered a lot of boxing, okay, over the years. What did you think of Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford fight the other night? Did you get a chance to see it?
I did, yeah. I thought it was kind of tactically a really interesting fight. It wasn't a great fight, right? I mean, the one thing we got to remember, right? The Saudis have now basically bought the sport, and everybody on that telecast is being paid by this Turkey, Allah, whatever his name is, and that guy's buddy chopped up that Washington Post reporter, right? So. Look, I'm not blaming anybody. If I were working that broadcast, I would say whatever that guy wanted me to say too. So they're gonna kind of maybe overstate things a little bit. But it was a very tactically interesting fight. I thought just the way, I think Crawford kind of started off fighting on the back foot, moved to the front foot. Canelo kind of started, landing a little bit. Crawford kind of changed pace a lot. It's obviously 2 guys doing this at a really high level. What I was kind of surprised was the fact that I guess just how well Crawford took the power, right? I mean, Canelo hit him flush a couple of times, and it didn't do anything to him. Usually that's kind of the issue when guys move up in weight. It's just the power doesn't carry up, and so a lot of times when you see guys that do move up, they kind of fit one of 2 categories. You kind of have the Roy Jones, Manny Pacquiao thing where these guys have ridiculous foot speed and they can stand 10 feet away from you and kind of dive bomb, hit you once and twice to get out. Or the kind of the defensive genius, right? Like Floyd Mayweather. I'd actually put Roberto Duran, I think, who's a very underrated defensive fighter in that category too, where they could stand right in front of you and not get hit. Crawford just kind of looked like he just belonged there, which is incredible given that, when I think of Terrence Crawford, I think of a lightweight. Right. I know he's fought some at 47, but to me, he looked the best at lightweight. And here he is, fighting at super middle and looking like he completely belongs there. So that was kind of the one thing I didn't expect. But it was the one thing that makes to me a great fight is when there's kind of back and forth, right? This kind of strategic. Okay, one guy has the advantage, the other guy adjusts, and the other guy adjusts, and then the other guy adjusts. And, I thought especially kind of later in the fight as it went on, Canelo was trying to, and Andre Ward kind of pointed this out, that he was kind of trying to lure him in. And I thought Canelo was trying to load up on a right hand. And Crawford, I think, kind of knew that and just stared at him, right? I'm not going to jump in there. I know you're lowering your head to bait me in. So that aspect of it, I found really kind of stimulating because I don't think we've seen a fight like that in recent years where where both guys are good enough and had the adaptability to, again, make adjustment after adjustment after adjustment. I mean, honestly, watching it, I was kind of wishing we still had 15-round fights, right? Because they would have gone through they probably would have, they probably had both guys had enough tricks in their bag to kind of go undergo another adjustment. That said, I do think, look, Mike Tyson was the biggest, literally remains the biggest draw in boxing at 65 or whatever he is now. That kind of tells you where this sport is, right? And I think with and I think kind of one good question here coming out of this fight, where does either guy go other than to fight each other again? There isn't, and I think this is to me the biggest, my biggest kind of disappointment with the sport right now is that there's just the depth of talent isn't there anymore, right? Where before you would have 5 to 10 legitimate guys in every division. And if you cleaned out your division, hey, you know what? That was enough to kind of solidify your kind of place in the Hall of Fame. I mean, the reality is like, I don't know. I still don't know what to make of Terrence Crawford. And he's 37 years old. You know, he did it. I mean, I think all the criticisms about him not having faced anybody up to this point, I think those were all true, right? Now, it's not his fault. And unfortunately, now what happens is the only way you can prove that you're a great fighter is by moving up in weight, right? You could go find kind of the next big name there. Um, but not everybody has the skills, right? Or the right, because I do think it's very specific skill sets that are required to make that kind of move. I think of like Mikey Garcia from Oxnard, right? He's from the same camp that produced Fernando Vargas and his brother Robert Garcia. I thought Mikey was a great lightweight, right? Just by the eye test, I would think he was the type of lightweight that could have competed. I'm not saying he would have been champion necessarily, but he could have competed in any era. Well, he had to move up to welterweight to try to prove how great he was, and he kind of didn't have, again, the foot speed or maybe the defensive ability to beat a guy, who's naturally 12 plus pounds bigger than him. So, it was a great night, I think, for boxing, kind of in the one thing. I just kind of, I think we're just kind of going to go back to the nothingness of the sport, unfortunately, and just wait for the next Mike Tyson fight, at 65. I mean, how ridiculous is that, right? I mean, that would be, this is
I look forward to that last one. I was all fired up about it.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, I mean, because he's just an old man. I mean, it would be like, and the fact that like people would prefer to watch that over like guys that are in their prime right now, again, says everything that you need to know about the current state of the sport.
Nobody knows anything about the fighters that are fighting now.
Well, it's because they're no good. Years ago, I went to I remember Ryan Karchi, our USC beat writer, and I went to go cover USC at BYU. And afterwards, we stopped at the Red Iguana, great restaurant in Salt Lake City, and I put the Tyson Fury fight on my phone, right? And Ryan's kind of watching this, right? He doesn't know anything about boxing, and he asked me, "Is this guy any good?" Right? Look, if you watch Barry Bonds play baseball, you don't have to, even if you don't know nothing about baseball, you don't have to ask me, is this guy any good? If you watch Messi play soccer and you don't know anything about soccer, you don't have to ask me, is this guy any good? Right? The fact is, I think the talent is just so down. That's what's created this vacuum, right? And the fact that people would rather watch Tyson over guys in the prime now. It would be like if somebody would say like, hey, you know what? I would rather watch Sandy Koufax pitch today than an actual major league game. I mean, that's basically what's happened. That's how bad the sport has become. And
there's no question about it. I mean, we could talk about boxing, what's wrong with boxing. That's been a question that's been going on for 100 years. But even in California, it's so hard to put on a boxing event. You've got to, pay so much just to, get the California State Athletic Commission to sanction a fight. I mean, I remember talking to Bobby DeFilippe, who passed away here a few years ago. I used to sit with him at ringside. He was a big promoter, was in the California Boxing Hall of Fame. And he told me before we ever opened the doors, it's costing me $30,000. Well, when you've got a venue that you have to pay for and you can only seat 1,000 people, I mean, you're losing money before the fighters ever take the ring. You got to pay the doctor, you got to pay the timekeeper, you got to pay the referees, the fighters. I mean, the sport kind of beats itself up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, look, and I don't think it's a bad thing, by the way. I think that obviously a lot of boxers come from, right, and a lot of the greats, all-time greats came from like impoverished backgrounds. The fact that people now, right, that athletes feel they have other options, right? They can go, if you're a great athlete, the NBA is a great option now for you, right? Even the NFL, even with all their concussion problems, still better than boxing, So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that like people no longer feel the need that, right, okay, I have to go like assault somebody.
Well, it's tough to go in the gym. I mean, you got to pay the price and you got to love it. I mean, you got to flat out love it. And, somebody, I can't remember who had the saying, it's tough to get out for that 5 o'clock run when you're laying in bed in silk pajamas.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I just think the biggest thing though, they're just not getting the athletes, that they used to. Even Canelo, kind of when he was in his prime. I always kind of thought you go back to like the 90s, right, when you had middleweights like Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins and James Toney. Even a guy like Michael Nunn, who kind of got forgotten about, right? I think Michael Nunn boxes Canelo's nose off. Honestly, I really do. So, but it is kind of what it is. And look, like, hey, it was a great fight. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So I'm gonna kind of take that, and that'll be, I guess, until the next one, the next good fight happens in 10 years. I'll just hold on to this one, I guess.
Okay, last thing, and I didn't even plan on bringing up boxing, but I know you've covered a lot, and I wanted to get your opinion on that. Deshaun Foster gets fired after they get beat at the Rose Bowl last Friday night, 35-10. Okay. I don't know Deshaun Foster from a can of paint, but I covered him when he was at Tustin High School. He had a great career at UCLA, played in the NFL, got into coaching, and I guess is very well liked. He seemed like he's been a pretty good recruiter. He got off to a bad start at that first Big Ten media day. And I blame UCLA for that because they should have coached him up a little bit. And that's what you do with an inexperienced coach, deal with the media. But, he gets let go. And, this is on UCLA. This is not on Deshaun Foster. They put him in a no-win situation. And here's one of your coveted alums who now has to take his little athletic bag and go home. A lot of money in it, but nonetheless, he wanted to do a better job for his alma mater, and he really didn't get much of a helping hand from the university, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Martin Jarmon, the athletic director, his fingerprints are all over the crime scene here, right? I mean, and we go back to, Chip Kelly's last season there.
He did a poor job, by the way.
He did, right? He did, and Jarmon did not fire him at the end of that season. And so what that led to was, right, and then, it turned out Kelly wasn't happy either necessarily with what was going on. So he just leaves, right? He left late in the process. And so now they're scrambling for a coach. By this point, Danton Lynn, who's now the defensive coordinator at USC, he has already left. So kind of probably the obvious successor is gone. And then for some reason, Jarmon decides, he announces that he's going to find the coach in the next 4 days. I don't know why you would ever put that kind of time. I mean, time restraint on yourself. I mean, probably means that he already kind of knew where he was going to go with this.
Either that or the big donors were on his rear end.
Yeah, and it was just again, I just don't think Foster ever really had a chance here, right? And it's one, and I think it just kind of, and you just see just how he, look, from what I understand, he was a very good running backs coach, but kind of running the whole thing is a whole different proposition. And the way New Mexico was just kind of running through these huge holes in the defense, right? The fact that the number of just kind of like penalties, right? I think it was 115 or so yards, this past week against New Mexico. Week before that, I think it was even more, like 130 yards in penalties. This is just kind of somebody being like in way over their head, right? And this is, I'm totally with you. This is on the school. They put him in a horrible position. This was not going to work. I don't know how anybody thought this was going to work. And now they're kind of left stuck, in this position really where they have to go out and basically find kind of the next Sean McVay, right? I mean, that's what they need, because you can't, they can't go out and make a safe hire at this point, because this is kind of the one thing too that's kind of, Ben Bolch, our beat guy, has done a tremendous job covering this stuff. He had a thing about the attendance and the real attendance figures as opposed to the announced stuff. I mean, the announced attendance figures are terrible, and it turns out obviously the real numbers are even worse. Nobody is at the Rose Bowl. Like you get a seasoned coach who can get you to 8-8. 8-8 is going to do nothing because the fans have already left. And this, coach. Once you lose an audience, one of the toughest things to do is get them back. And so, I don't. They need they need an innovator, right? They need somebody young, because they can't be put in the situation that USC might find itself in a couple of weeks when they go to Illinois and lose, probably, right? Where, okay, well, our coach might be a fraud. How much is his buyout? Oh, it's $90 million. Like, we can't get rid of this guy, right? The one good thing about the Foster thing was it only cost him about like $6-7 million, I think, to get rid of him. It was relatively inexpensive. So they have to maintain that flexibility, because look, sometimes you go out and you get a young guy, it doesn't work, right? Rams got McVay. The Chargers try to counter by getting Brandon Staley. Hey, McVay worked, Staley didn't. You kind of don't know until the guy takes over, right? And so, They need to kind of maintain that flexibility. So they have to get some right. And so the buyout number has to be low, which means that the coach has to be on the early side of their coaching career. You need that said again, like when with Foster, just kind of looked like the team never really developed an identity other than maybe that they played really hard for him kind of at the end of last year, right? But that's not a real like kind of X's and O's identity. McVay showed up from day one, right? He came down for obviously he descended from the Shanahan coaching tree. I think right there's a reason them and the Niners have kind of run like parallel paths because again the two coaches there came down from the same coaching tree. But I also think it shows that both of those, right, both McVay and Shanahan had very solid ideas, even though they were young, of what they thought, the way football should be played. And so, you need that. You kind of need the energy of a Sean McVay who's going to be able to, right, even though maybe you don't have the biggest NIL war chest, is going to be able to kind of like win you over with his enthusiasm. And again, McVay did that kind of day one. And I'm kind of getting uncomfortable of how much I'm complimenting Sean McVay right now. But that is the type of hire that they're going to need to get them out of this thing. Look, I went to UCLA and I have, right, a lot of my friends from college have been texting me, asking me, can't we just shut down the football program and put all our money in basketball? And I'm like, well, right. I think that's the sentiment. I think if you ask most alumni, maybe not the donors necessarily, obviously, that are really invested in the football program, but I think if you ask most alumni, they will tell you they don't want football anymore. They don't want anything to do with this. It's just embarrassing, But look, Casey Wasserman just built them a brand new, right, expensive practice facility. They made this move to the Big Ten. There are going to be financial ramifications for pulling out of that. Like they got to make a go of this, and I don't think that they have a choice otherwise. But yeah, it's they found themselves in a position where they have to hit an absolute home run with their next hire because again, getting to 8-8, not going to do it here.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. They got to figure it out here fairly quickly. They can't wait till late December or January. They've got to pull the trigger ahead of time here. Dylan, as always, thank you so much for the time. I took way too much of your time, especially coming off being at the ballpark last night. But thank you very much. Hope the family's well. Hope the kids are back in school and they're happy with all their instructors. And we'll do this again here come playoff time.
Hey, thank you so much, Coach. Again, like I said, I used to listen to you as a kid, so this is me getting to live out my dream here every time I'm on with you. So, thank you for having me on.
Hey, be well, my friend.
Same to you.
There you go. A lot of great stuff right there. I mean, you're not going to get that too often. You get it on a 7 or 8 minute radio interview, but we talked about a variety of different things. And Dylan's definitely a man in the know. Man, going in that Dodger clubhouse last night, woo, that'd be rough, man. They've lost 2 games in a row to the Philadelphia Phillies. They'll go at it again tonight at Dodger Stadium. Real quickly, Padres get beat last night 8-3. They get out hit 10-7. Rough night for not only the Padres but Michael King. Didn't have it. 5 runs in the first, 2 more in the second. Threw a shutout frame in the third. Then Cedric Mullins led off the bottom of the fourth with a homer. He was out of the ball game. Career high 8 earned runs against Michael King last night. A career high 4 homers hit off him. I thought Kyle Hart came in, pitched very well he ended up going last night 2 innings, allowed nothing, had 5 strikeouts, looked really good. Yuki Matsui, an inning and 2/3, couple of walks, and Bradley Rodriguez, an inning and a third, a couple of strikeouts, and drilled Alvarez, their catcher, knocked him out of the ball game, actually. Clay Holmes went 4 innings, gave up 3 hits and 2 earned runs. Then they went to the former Padre, Sean Manaea, who's been miserable. They took him out of the rotation. They worked him out of the bullpen. He ended up going 5 innings last night and only gave up a 1 run. That was a home run late in the ball game to Freddie Fermin. And, the guy that's swinging the bat now, Jackson Merrill, 2 for 4 last night, his 14th homer, his 21st double, hit 4 homers in his last 5 games. Manny, a 1 for 4 night. Fernando, 0 for 4. You got to get the big boys going. They're not facing the Colorado Rockies any longer. Tonight, Nick Pivetta, 13-5, 2-7-3, going against left-hander David Peterson, 9-5, 3-7-7. Peterson, last 7 starts. Get this. I'm sure the Padres will get him back on track. He's gone 35 1/3 in his last 7 starts. How about a 2-1 record and a 7.13 ERA? And then tomorrow, early game at 10:10. It'll be right here to Randy Vasquez, 5-6. coming with a 3.72, going against a young guy, 22-year-old right-hander Jonah Tong, 1-2 and an 8.49 ERA. It'll be only his fourth career game. So, Padres, man, let's go. Dodgers are struggling. Let's go. That's the thing that's puzzling to me and frustrating. You know, the Dodgers are handing the Padres the division, and the Padres are not taking it. I mean, this is going to be our best chance for a while, I think, to beat the Dodgers in the division. Now, I don't know if the division means that much. Both obviously the Padres right now would have to go on the road to Chicago, and the Dodgers would have their wild card series at home if they win the division. But man, this is very, very frustrating. And Michael King probably going to get two more starts before playoff time. And you would hope they're going to be a lot better than last night. Last night, everything up in the zone, not a lot on it, over the middle of the plate, but up. Hitters, took them to task pretty good last night. So we'll see what the Padres can do tonight. They remain 2 games back, plus the Dodgers have the wild card. So there you have it. Okay, let's get out to questions. Our live coaches crew questions. Let's get to some questions this morning. And we went longer with Dylan Hernandez than I anticipated, but you get him on, you want to get as much information, and definitely wanted to get his thoughts on that fight. It was a good fight, wasn't a great fight the other night, but let's get to our coaches crew's questions. What do we got today? William, love your show, Coach. I agree with so much you say listening from Yuma, Arizona, big Padres fan. Well, I try to bring you the best information I can get. And you talk to guys like Dylan Hernandez and the people that are in my network. And I got to tell you, I told you a couple weeks ago, I lost my phone. And I was all bummed out. All bummed out. Number one, I got my phone, and then I had to go through the Apple recovery, and I got all my pictures back. Don Larson. I got through the perfect game in 1956. I thought I'd lost that. Pictures of Dick Enberg. A lot of great pictures of my family members, my grandkids. They all came back last night. They all came back, including my text messages of all the numbers that would be hard to rekindle. So I appreciate that. But William, you keep listening from over there at Yuma. I always think about going to Yuma. Whenever I go to Arizona, I always remember getting off and going to that McDonald's there and having a little lunch and then get back in the car and get to Phoenix, going to spring training. But William, thank you very much. Appreciate the comment a great deal. Brian, I feel so detached, Coach. This team is so underwhelming. Last year we hit back-to-back home runs. Now we're getting rocked. I don't see this team leaving the first round of the playoffs. I would agree with you right now. Brian's kind of interesting. I watched the game yesterday, like I watch all the Padre games. And the Mets are really good. And the Padres are a good ball club. They're not great, but they're good. And the Mets are a good ball club. And then after that game was over, I tuned into the Dodger-Philly game. And I got to tell you, the level of play was so much greater. I don't even know how to explain it. I don't think it was the crowd. I think it was the players, the intensity. I mean, the intensity in the Philly Dodger series so far has been unbelievable. I mean, the Phillies are good. And I got a lot of respect for their manager, Rob Thompson, great baseball guy. Finally got an eye. He was getting ready to retire. He was the bench coach of the Yankees. He was getting ready to retire. And then they gave him the job. And he's done a heck of a job. They've won back-to-back National League titles. But they've got some grinders. I mean, they got guys that aren't afraid to get their uniform dirty. And they're a bunch of guys that make no excuses. They go out and they play their ass off. And I'm going to tell you what, they got a pitching staff. Even though they lost Zach Wheeler, they're 3 left-handers. You got Ranger Suarez. You got Christopher Sanchez, who pitched last night and was fantastic. Gave up 4 early runs, and then after that, he didn't give up squat. And then you got Jesus Luzardo, who's pitching tonight against the Dodgers. He went 14-6 ERA at 4.03. But, I mean, those 3 guys are dynamite. Their bullpen's good, not great. But they got grind with Harper. Alec Boehm's missed a big chunk of the season. Brandon Marshall, I like. Trey Turner's on the IL right now. Real Muta, their catcher. I mean, they got some studs on that team. And let alone Kyle Schwarber, who's probably going to finish second in the MVP voting to Ohtani this year. I mean, Schwarber's unbelievable. He's a free agent. How much money do you think he's going to get? But I get it. The Padres can be a little underwhelming. And Manny's got to pick it. Manny's been awful. I don't care what he did against Colorado. I put an asterisk next to that. Colorado's so bad. I'm so down on Colorado. I've always liked their organization. I've always liked their ballpark. I'll always like their ballpark. Ballpark's one of the best baseball parks to go watch a game in baseball. But man, they got to blow that thing up in Colorado. That's embarrassing how bad they are. They got very few true major leaguers. They really do. I mean, that's like hitting in a spring training game when you go against some of their guys. I mean, they got a couple, good pitchers, but it's few and far between. But Brian, thank you very much. Padres just really ticked me off. And they're a very frustrating ball club to watch. We San Diegans never want to go to LA and Dodger Stadium. LA fans love to go to San Diego. It's a vacation down here. LA is smog and traffic. I can't argue with that. I was talking to my neighbor yesterday. I was walking my dog, Carney. Carney and I were walking down the street yesterday morning. I ran into a gentleman and his wife, and the gentleman I actually went to high school with. I graduated a year before he did. And we were talking. He's got two kids that live in LA, and they're doing very well in business. And I go, yeah, when my car gets to Mission Viejo, most of the time, it wants to make a U-turn and come back to San Diego. I did enjoy my time a couple of weeks ago going to the SC game at the Coliseum. That was a lot of fun. SC fans, man, they're into it. And they ought to be. They got a pretty good ball club this year, but their schedule's going to get a little bit more difficult. But they'll take the win at Purdue last week. All right, Chris, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Max, will the Padres figure out how to hit left-handed pitching this year? It's killed this team all year, and the Cubs will most likely have Imanaga, Boyd lined up in the wild card. So I would certainly expect that. I would expect that. They're going to get another test tonight against the struggling left-hander and David Peterson. See what they can do against David Peterson. I mentioned, his last 7 starts, not kind. ERA over 7. See what happens. Padres can't get swept by the Mets, can they? And then they play that early game tomorrow morning. I always worry about those 10-10 games on a getaway day on the East Coast. That always bugs me a little bit. All right, we got anything else? Okay, let's take a look at the standings right now and get you all squared away. NL standings to start with. All right, Philadelphia, they wrapped it up. They wrapped it up, running away with the division, 12 and a half games up on the Mets. Milwaukee, 5 games up. They're in great spot right now. Dodgers, Padres, right there, 2 games back. And how about the Diamondbacks? Beating the Giants each of the last 2 days. The Giants now, a game under 500. They were making that big run. And all of a sudden, they got put in their place. And the Diamondbacks now, it's 77 and 75. Let's take a look at the wild card now. This is really getting interesting. Okay, you got the Cubs and Padres. They're in. The Mets are fighting for a spot. Arizona on a game and a half back of the Mets. Could you imagine if the Padres could win a couple of games and the Diamondbacks win their next couple of games? Man, they'll be in front of the Mets for the final wild card. Remember, that's the way it was supposed to be at the beginning of the year. Remember that? We thought that the Diamondback, it'd be the Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, or Diamondbacks, then Padres. But right now, the Diamondbacks got some tough games. They got 3 more against the Padres. They got 3 more against the Dodgers. So we'll see what happens. But the Mets, hey, look at that record. They'd lost, 8 in a row till they won on Sunday. Now they won the other night against the Padres. So they've dropped 8 of their last 10. So there you have it. Let's take a look real quick at the American League and sort that thing out. Bruce Bochy's ball club lost 2 tough decisions to the Houston Astros, kind of taking them out of it. But Toronto 5 games up. Yankees 5 games back of the Blue Jays. Boston 7 games back. I think Toronto's in good shape right there. Detroit 5.5 games up. They've not had a great second half. They're living off of what they did in the first half of the season. You see the Guardians really pouring it on. They've won 9 of their last 10. Seattle, a half-game lead over Houston. Texas, 4.5 games back, and there's 1 game left in that Houston-Texas series that's being played down in Houston. So there you have it. Let's take a look at the wild card. Yankees in pretty good shape. Houston right there, Boston, and you got the Guardians and you got the Rangers. I wouldn't count out either one of those teams. The Rangers going to be a little more of a long shot. Guardians still have a shot, but their margin for error is very, very slim at this point in time. And look at that. They won 9 of 10. Wow. All right. Xander Bogaerts could be back as early as this weekend. He's going to work out today. Again, in Arizona, he's been over there running. They're saying he's at about 85% running wise, taking ground balls, taking batting practice, also hitting off minor league pitchers. Um, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see him until next week when the ball club gets back home. We'll wait and see on that. But getting him back would be very nice, but you need him closer to 100%, not 80, 85%. He's not a fast guy to begin with, even though he stole a bunch of bases this year. You want to make sure he's running at least 90%, if not a little bit better. So, we'll update you on that on Friday. But I'm thinking they're saying it could be this weekend, but I'm thinking next week. I believe they have an off day Monday. And then Milwaukee comes in. So, give them that little extra time to get back because you need them for the long haul. Congratulations to our buddy Joe Musgrove, nominated for the Clemente Award. MVP, Cy Youngs, rookie, all those are great. The Clemente Award says it all. And wish Joe the best. He was actually put up for this in 2021. And I saw his interview yesterday talking about this. And I went online yesterday and I voted for Joe Musgrove. This guy's a great community guy. He's a San Diegan. His comments yesterday were, I was out. He still wants to come back and pitch. I don't think that's going to happen. Probably end up going down to Arizona and pitch a few innings just to kind of get it out of his system. I can't see him pitching at the end of the year or definitely in the postseason. You can't have him on the postseason roster not being built up. But he said, being out the entire year, it gave me an opportunity to go out and be in the community, take some pressure off of my teammates that are playing every day. But that's Joe Musgrove. And I saw that community event on TV that he was a part of a week ago. They gave out a bunch of bicycles to a bunch of kids. And Joe's just that kind of guy. When I did that appearance and did my talk show, when I was still on radio out at Cafe Adesso, his mom and dad's place, he came out, and I don't know how many hundred people. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, out in Alpine, up in the mountains there, we did a talk show there. That was so much fun. I got those pictures back as well. I got a lot of love for Joe Musgrove. I don't know Joe real well. He's one of those guys when you meet him, you feel like you've known him forever. He's that type of guy. So we wish him the very best. I just wanted to give you again, the pitching matchups, we got Pavetta tonight going against left-hander Peterson, 9-5 and a 3.77, but he's been awful in those last 7 starts, a 7.13 ERA. Tomorrow, Randy Vasquez going against Jonah Tong. So there you have it. Okay, let's get to Coach's mailbag, and then we're going to get out of here and get on with our day. All right, Austin Prather, I enjoy the show, Coach. I don't listen to local sports talk radio anymore. Please keep the show going for a long time. Miss you, buddy. Hey, Austin, I appreciate that. Long-time listener. I listen to 760. I listen to Sammy and Fletch, and I'll listen to John Schaefer and Jim Russell, mostly on their post-game show. They do a really nice post-game show. But a lot of the guys that I've tried to listen to, they just don't do their homework. They just don't do their homework. But I enjoy the guys at 760 because I know they're working on trying to get that station up and running, going well. And I'll be on tomorrow. Just so everyone knows, I'm on pretty much every Thursday at 1:30 on the Fletch Zone with Fletch and Sammy Long. So really like those guys. It's a lot of fun talking to them. They ask good questions and they let me roll. But a lot of talk show radio has just changed a lot. You got a lot of people, I think, just open up the newspaper and they really don't know what they're talking about. They just talk in circles and cliches and, very, very little information. I like shows where I get information. I'm finding more and more talk shows. Not only on radio, but on TV. How do some of these people get jobs on TV? I always had people say, why didn't you try to go to ESPN? You know why? Because I love San Diego. I don't want to be away from my family. I made that choice many years ago when I got out of coaching. I wanted to be around to raise my kids and now be a part of my grandkids' life. You could go for a day or two, but I don't want to be gone for 10 days. But Austin, thank you very much. Appreciate that. What else we got today? Heyman, figured the division isn't feasible, but I'm excited for the playoffs, and we hope we get to face the Dodgers. Well, you know what? Uh, we're going to be in the playoffs, but we got to start playing better. And going to Chicago is not going to be easy. And the Dodge, I can guarantee you this: the Dodge, they got their work cut out for them. I mean, whoever finishes, the sixth team in the NL, they're going to have to go to LA, whether it be the Mets or Arizona. Um, they got to play. They got to play. Both the Padres and Dodgers got to play better, or they're going to be out in 2 games, 3 at the most. But neither team like tearing it up right now. Who wants to win the National League West? We haven't figured that out yet. All right, we got one more there for us. We got another one. Okay. Ruin Rain, hoping we take the rest of the series from the Mets and Giants, can sweep the Dodgers in the next series. I think sweeping the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, I don't think it's going to happen. They could take 3 out of 4, but I don't see them sweeping the Dodgers. Dodgers are going to have their big boys lined up to pitch. Okay. And, the Giants, they're kind of playing their way out of it this week, and we'll see what happens tonight against Arizona, but they dropped those first 2 games. But Padres just need to take care of business. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about what the Dodgers. Just go out and play a good, solid baseball game tonight. Win tonight. Get a good win tomorrow, and then get on that plane and go in and get at least 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. You can't go in there and let the White Sox, beat you 2 out of 3. And the Padres can't get swept by the Mets. They get swept by the Mets, they're done. They're done as far as winning the division. Even if the Dodgers were to get beat tonight, but the Padres end up, getting swept by the Mets, then the division's done. You got 2. You'd be still 2 games back, plus the tiebreaker, and you'd have 9 games left. That's going to be tough. That'll be tough. Ruin Rain, thank you very much. All right. We went long today, but that's okay. I want to thank everyone for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like. Please turn on your notifications. And, of course, I would really appreciate it if you jump in and be a Gold Glove member. For $2.99 a month, you can be a Gold Glove member. You can tell your buddies, hey, I'm part of Coach's Club. Be a Gold Glove member, another way to support the program. Very much appreciate that. Just hit the join button on our YouTube page, and we'll get it done. Now, Friday, we'll obviously recap the final 2 games of the Padre Mets series. We'll get you ready for a weekend in college football. Jonathan Oliveri is going to join us and give us a lowdown on the Aztecs. Man, I was reading stuff on Cal. Oh, my God. That game starts at 7:30. I'm going. Got my press credential. I'm ready to roll. But Cal is averaging 32 points a game and giving up just a little over 10 per game. This is going to be a tough task. Even though the Aztecs are coming off a bye week, it's going to be a tough task on Saturday night. But Jonathan Oliveri is going to be in, give us a complete scouting report on the Aztecs and Cal. And then we'll also talk high school sports. John Maffey from the Union Tribune will stop by, and we'll take a look at some of the top matchups for this coming Friday night. Until then, Coach John Quintero, have a great day, everyone. And let's hope our Padres get a couple of wins there against the Metropolitans. Talk to you Friday morning at 9 a.m. Bye-bye.